Colin Wilson here for another edition of Scramble Drill with Johnny Manziel, who's coming off of a winning week. But before we talk about that, Johnny, it was an epic night in the history of college football. The 12-team bracket, the first rankings by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee were put out. We now have a bracket. We can now discuss all these projected matchups, which we know we're going to change next week and every week and be the greatest talking thing that's ever happened in college football. What is your biggest takeaway from the first bracket that was put out by the committee?
I think the first thing that kind of pops off the page is obviously BYU being at four. I think if you're just looking at everything, you don't expect, they're ranked ninth in the country, but four in the college football playoff committee early on. But, is that warranted? Are they able to compete with some of these other teams up there? If you look at their, strength of record, they have a better strength of record than Ohio State. They have as many top 25 wins as, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and a bunch of these teams combined. So, is it warranted? And are they going to hang there and stay there as these continue to roll out week by week?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the selection committee is going to treat teams that have tied records at the top of these conference standings. Right now, BYU being undefeated obviously gets this spot. I think another thing to point out, Johnny, is that this is the coveted 5 seed that everybody wants because you go into the worst conference champion and you can easily make your way into the semifinals. What out of the projected first round games, there's Boise State and Ohio State, Indiana going to Tennessee, Alabama going to Texas, and then Notre Dame going to Penn State, which would be just the craziest whiteout we've ever seen. Which one of these games are you most interested in seeing?
I think probably Texas, Alabama would be the one that I'm looking at that I would be the most interested in seeing. I know Texas would probably be favored by probably around a touchdown or something in this game, but I think this is a game that Alabama could give them a little bit of trouble. And obviously, looking at that part of the bracket, you're going on to play a Miami team, and I don't know if a Miami team has played any defenses really like we've seen on these SEC teams. So an interesting path to the playoff in that part of the bracket for sure.
Yeah, and Johnny, I think one thing that people are not realizing is that the Orange Bowl is a part of the semifinals, not the quarterfinals. That means the ACC champion has to play in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Do you really want to draw an SEC team into Atlanta? Like just Miami, I think that is one of the worst home fields that the ACC could have got was playing in the Peach Bowl. So out of these projected first round matchups, I was able to tweet out from our power rankings over at Action Network what some of these spreads would be. We would see, and all of these have home field advantage factored in, to be Texas minus 7.5 against Alabama, Penn State minus 3.5 against Notre Dame, which is essentially just home field, Tennessee minus 6.5 against Indiana, and Ohio State a large minus 17.5 against Boise, which really got some Twitter reaction last night. Out of all of these games, which one would you look at initially and want to bet?
I would think you'd have to look at the Boise State spread and have to be a little bit eye-opening after the way they played Oregon earlier this year. Granted it was an early season game, but to play the number one team in the country to a one-score game and really have an opportunity in that game to maybe even pull that off. Ohio State obviously goes down to Oregon. So are you going to get the same Boise State on that day? I'm not sure, but 17.5, that's a lot of points for a team that has probably the best running back in the country and a team that hung with the number one team in the country.
Yeah, the offensive coordinator for Boise State is a mastermind, and you'd give Genty 2 weeks to rest before taking on Ohio State defense. It is not very good against the rush. So that would be definitely a game that I would be centering in. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our record last week was 2-1, Johnny. You had Oregon and Ohio State as a winner. Pitt didn't make it there. SMU is just a freight train that is not going to make it into the playoffs. Sorry, everybody. Let's go ahead and talk about your picks this week. Let's start off with Georgia minus 2.5 going to Oxford to take on Ole Miss. Johnny, I talked about this game all summer. I mean, Georgia just put a 50 burger on Ole Miss, beat them by 35 points, and really made Ole Miss look bad. But there was a lot of injuries on that Ole Miss team. You fast forward to right now, Johnny. Ole Miss is healthy. Maybe Trey Harris is going to be back, and they're starting to peak. Who do you like in this game?
Really comes down to what Georgia team are you going to see? What Carson Beck are you going to see? I think Ole Miss after last week, get a chance to, feel how their offense is going out. I think they're very much trending in the right direction. I'm really tempted to take Ole Miss in this game, but I think this is a game that Georgia's still going to be Georgia and find a way to come out and make this and get this win. I'm
So the
taking
next
I'm taking Georgia with the points.
taking Georgia on the road at the Grove, that would that I see it's interesting because if Ole Miss wins this game, there's so many two-loss teams in the SEC. The committees just out of their computers are not going to work. So we'll see how it turns out. But if the Bulldogs win, it's good for the committee. The next one we have is a big one in the Big 12, one that's really going to decide the race that we have going on there. And that's Colorado, favored by 3.5 points, going to Texas Tech, a team, Johnny, that you and we haven't even talked about Texas Tech and down in your state. Who do you like in this game when the Buffaloes go down to take on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who are hopefully throwing tortillas on the field if they can beat Dion?
Yeah, obviously going to be a rowdy environment in Lubbock on Saturday. But I'm going to take Colorado money line. I think this is a game where you have your opportunity to come in here and win this game and hopefully get yourself back into really, close to the top of the Big 12 contention. So I think this is a game Shedeur and Travis Hunter are going to have to come out and play their best and find a way, no matter what, to win this game.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. The last one, probably the biggest game in the SEC every single season, no matter what. Alabama is favored by 3 on the road against LSU, which is interesting. Home teams have been pretty good in the SEC this year, but Alabama's getting 3 points here, a total of 58.5. Johnny, do you have a pick on Alabama versus LSU?
Yeah, obviously a night game in Death Valley. What Garrett Nussmeier are we going to see in this game? What are we going to see the second half of the A&M game, or we're going to see the guy that we've seen throughout the season? I think this is a game we talked about earlier this week that Kalen DeBoer has a lot of pressure on this game. I think this is for an Alabama team to end up where they want to, which they're very much in contention. They have to win this game, and this is one that I think they go in hostile environment and play their best football to come out and get a win.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to see Brian Kelly pounding the table about losing a close one again, but could happen. All right, so that'll do it for Johnny's picks for this week. We got Georgia beating Ole Miss on the road, Colorado winning on the money line on the road at Texas Tech, and Alabama with their backs up against the wall to keep their college football playoff hopes alive.